This is the only YouTube playlist you're ever going to need to learn about vocal recording at home. And we're going to look at the equipment list that you will be needing to record at home. The first equipment that we need is a laptop. I'm sure that we all think, okay, I can actually record with a mobile, but there are limitations that you will be dealing with when you handle a mobile for vocal recording. If you're thinking the normal voice memo app, you can do it in it, but not with the right quality, and there are a lot of limitations in terms of editing as well. So you will need a proper laptop. Doesn't matter whether it is Windows or Mac, but you need a laptop that has good memory and works quite fast so that the processing time doesn't get delayed and you have much more flexibility on it. Number two, obviously when I think about vocal recording, we need a microphone. Now there are so many microphones that you can find in the market, but I'll just give you two different differentiations between a condenser mic and a dynamic mic. When we say dynamic mic, that's a mic that you usually see people perform with on stage. That's the normal mic that they use, and that mic has its own advantages and disadvantages. If you are at a home studio which is not soundproof, I would recommend getting a dynamic mic, because then it will not pick up a lot of noise that you have in your room, like your AC noise, fan noise, or the road noise, all that. But the quality is not going to be great through it. Whereas if you have a condenser mic, the quality is going to be really good. It's very sensitive. So it's going to pick up your vocals really well. But at the same time, in terms of disadvantages, it's going to pick up every noise that is there in your room. So if it's not soundproof, then that's going to be a headache in the recording process, because you have to make sure you either record at night or you probably cover yourself with bed sheets and blankets and try to record, noise free and stuff like that. But this is the two differentiation. You need to get a mic that will suit your room and your needs, and then incorporate that in your home studio setup. You cannot rely on a regular mic that you have on your earphones, because that's not the right quality. And if you are thinking about proper recording, I would suggest investing on either a dynamic mic or a condenser mic based on the noise level you have inside your room. Now the third point is interface, or you can also say it as sound card. To put in short about what an interface does, when I sing into a mic, we call that as analog signal. And when that gets into your laptop, it becomes a digital signal. But does that happen just magically like that? That conversion between analog to digital? No. You need a device that can convert one signal to another form. An interface is used for that. It is used to convert an analog signal into a digital signal. And you have amplifiers inside it and a circuitry which makes sure that this conversion is happening. Now, when we talk about interface, you have the cheapest interface or the most expensive one. Each of them has their own perks. But if you are thinking about just a home studio setup with just minimal recordings, like probably you're recording vocals and then maybe guitar, so it's like one or two things that you're probably thinking of recording, then I would suggest getting like a 2-input or a 3-input interface to start with. And what I mean by is that, like, I can connect my mic, but at the same time, if I want to do more recordings simultaneously, I can connect mic and 2 other guitars and record them together at once. So that means it's a 3-input interface, right? So what I have right now is a 2-input interface where I have a mic connection and I have an instrument connection. So this is a 2-input, right? So I wouldn't suggest getting a 2-input interface, because I am eventually going to upgrade this for a lot of different reasons. Like maybe I want to record more, or in the future, if I want to use this interface with like advanced settings, like I want an outboard gear for mixing, and for all those things, I'll need a high-end interface. So I wouldn't get the basic interface even if you're just starting out. Get some a little bit higher which has more inputs and outputs. Not with the maximum input output, but just, beyond 2 maybe. That will be useful in the long run. So that would be a good investment. Get something that works really well, a good brand, and more than 2 inputs is what I would suggest. And it's going to make your process much more easier with all the volume knobs that you see on that. It's just going to make your whole process a lot more smoother. I always aspire to teach somebody the way I want someone to teach me. And that's how I've been doing my YouTube tutorials on music mixing and mastering. It's always how I want someone else to teach me. And that's how I put in my efforts and the way I take videos, content. Everything is based on that. So if you found value in the videos that I've put at any point, but if you haven't subscribed, please do me a favor and do subscribe to my channel because it will motivate me to put a lot of videos for you. Number 4 is cables. Now, cable is something that a lot of people don't look into really seriously, but then there's a lot of problems that happens if your cable is not placed correctly or if it's the wrong type of cable. For example, on a microphone, if you want to connect it to an interface, you need an XLR cable, and that XLR cable must be of good quality also. Don't get a bad quality cable, and at the same time, I would suggest not letting your cables just hang around from the table to down, like you connect it and then it's just hanging down and eventually it comes and connects to your mic, because that's when there's a loose connection and it almost feels like your mic doesn't pick up continuously. Then and there there's a break, and then you hear like a little bit of crackle noise. Sometimes you'll not hear it through your headphones, and all these concepts happen because your cable is not set correctly or it's not the right cable. Proper XLR cable to connect your microphone to your interface, and at the same time the cable that connects your interface to your laptop. Usually it's a USB cable, but make sure that USB is not tangled or twisted. It's like set correctly, and I would suggest like getting a little bit more, like maybe another spare XLR cable or another USB cable to make sure that suppose while recording, if something doesn't work correct, you still have something else to replace it with and continue the recording. Otherwise, your creative process is just like stopped in half, and then it's going to be a very frustrating experience, because I've experienced that. I usually experience it when I want to have like proper vocal recording and I call an artist, and at that point the cable makes some issue. So I need to make sure the cable is set correctly and it's not twisted and all that. But if I just have another spare, I can just try that out. If that works, I'm just going to continue recording, right? So don't overlook this cable idea, because it's very, very important, and it's best to have the right cable. Don't let it hang from the top to bottom on any part of your setup. Now, number 5 is a DAW, digital audio workstation. Now you have your mic and your laptop interface, everything set up. Where are you going to record? Now, we already talked about voice memos, right? And then it's not gonna give you a lot of flexibility to record on that. So you need a proper music software so that you can record properly, do all your edits there, and make sure it's a very smooth and a professional manner of recording. So there are so many softwares out in the world. I use Logic Pro because I just found it user friendly, and it was very easy for me to use. But I've also tried Ableton Live, and I've used Studio One. I've tried Pro Tools also. It's just that for me, Logic Pro was really nice to use. And you can use whatever DAW that is suitable for your laptop and for your needs. You can choose anything that is applicable for a Windows laptop, like you can choose Fruity Loops or Pro Tools or whatever. It's totally up to you. It doesn't matter the DAW that you use when you start out, at least, but just make sure you have a DAW. Most DAWs will have like a trial version also, so you can just download it, see if you like the way it is being used and navigation part of it. If you don't, you can choose another DAW's trial version and like experiment and see if you like it. But you need a software where you can record your vocals and make all your edits and continue, editing and enhancing that track. I use Logic Pro and I have no problems with it, and my entire tutorial is kind of always revolving with Logic Pro, but you can still apply all those concepts on any DAW that you have. Number 6, and the most important part, is headphones. How are you going to listen to yourself sing? Your laptop speaker is not going to be the best speaker for you to listen to, because if you're trying to listen through that, that's going to bleed into the microphone once again. So you need a proper headphones. And when I say headphones, it's not the headphones that you listen to music on, not that. You need a studio headphones which actually gives you a raw signal into your ears, not a filtered signal. Some earphones that you listen to, like generally what you listen your music on, they generally have like a type of filter into it which slightly enhances the sound a bit, so that your listening experience is good. But then when you are recording vocals, do you want to hear your sound enhanced, or do you want to hear the raw sound and fix your vocals, or edit your vocals based on how it is raw sounding, right? So that's important. And that's why you need a proper pair of studio headphones which gives you an unfiltered signal. And you'll be wearing it while you're singing. So you need to listen to it while you sing. And that's how you know whether you're making mistakes or if you're singing in the right pitch. And at the same time, it will be useful when you are editing in the future as well. Do not think twice to invest on a proper pair of headphones, because it's something that you need to be comfortable listening to. It shouldn't be like harsh on your ear or on your head when it's placed like that. And it should last long, because you're going to use it too frequently. That's the most important part. So make sure you review headphones and get the best one. Now, number 7 is all these extra miscellaneous components that you might need, but you may not need at the start of your vocal recording. You don't need all these equipments immediately. Invest on them as you practice recordings, and then as you progress in this recording journey, because all these equipments that I'm explaining to you weren't bought in the same day. It was an investment that gradually happened, okay? And when I found out that limitation, when I had that need, that's when I bought these equipments. So this includes the speakers that you listen to. Now, speakers are not going to make a huge difference if you do not have a soundproof room like what you see with me. I don't have a soundproof room, but then I use speakers just to have an idea of how the track is sounding on it. But I don't really rely on that speakers, I only listen on my headphones mainly. But that's the thing. So to understand how it's sounding on a speaker, so I have speakers. Another option is your backup device. So I have 2 hard disks where I always, save all my client projects, these YouTube videos. So if I've done it for a couple of months, I just transfer them all into my hard disk, because Mac doesn't have a lot of storage, right? And you cannot rely on the general storage that you get on your laptop. So you need something to transfer your data to. Now, eventually I got 2 hard disks. In the beginning, I also didn't have anything, but when I found that need, I bought 2 hard disks. Number 3, like I said in one of my earlier points, getting a lot of spare cables that, will be very, very, very helpful if you have a crisis suddenly. Because if you get, for example, speakers, you need a set of cables for the speaker to work. And sometimes you might get noise through speakers. So then you need to change the cable and see if that will work. So for that reason, whatever cables you have, just get another set of them, so that any problem happens, you still have another good pair to, kind of replace it with. Another point, especially for vocal recording, is getting a pop filter that you can place right in front of the mic while you are recording, so that it just avoids and kind of reduces all these harsh S sounds, T sounds, P sounds that kind of pop into the recording, and it will sound very harsh and piercing in your ears. So I would suggest getting a pop filter, particularly for vocal recording. It's going to save a lot of editing time for you, because you're going to get a clean recording the moment you use a pop filter. Another point is getting monitors. So I have 2 monitor screens, and it's an investment that I did very late. I've been thinking of doing it, but then something or the other, I just found reasons to kind of push it for some reason. But trust me, when you get 2 monitors, especially when you're doing a lot of editings, you can open 2 screens at a time parallelly, and you can work together. Like what I do is open Logic on one window and the mixer window on another screen, so that I use this part for editing, and the mixer window to add plugins, make volume changes and stuff like that. So it just makes your whole work a lot easier and quicker. Another point is getting a little bit of foam around your room to just make sure you block a little bit of noise. Now, I've not done any of that except for probably this curtain that you see over here. It just blocks noise to some extent, okay? It does not do a very great job, but it's something. So if you feel like you do a lot of vocal recordings, then I would strongly suggest getting foams, or at least get a mic stand with the foam. You know, you have these circular foams. I'll put a picture on the screen, and then you can just use that as your tiny vocal booth so that it cuts a lot of noise. Now, I don't do a lot of vocal recording. My main interest is into mixing and mastering, so I did not invest into a foam. But then if that's your target, then don't think twice to get tiny foams to just fix on your around your studio so that it blocks a lot of noise. And another important investment is getting a mic stand, because if you have a mic and if you're going to hold and sing, there's obviously a probability where you're going to shake it often and you're going to move the distance between you and the mic. That's going to give variations in the recording that you do. So if you want a more consistent recording, have a mic stand and stand in the same distance, to get a consistent recording. Don't keep moving, or if you're having it in your hand, try to keep it as steady as you can. Don't keep moving often, and that's going to give a lot of tone changes. The recording texture itself is going to change a little bit, and it's going to be hard later on to kind of make it sound the same. So these are tiny things that you can fix on your own and not rely on the editing part or the post-production later on. And finally, not a very important part when it comes to vocal recording, but then think about a MIDI keyboard, okay? That is something that you can use to play instruments on. You can just plug that keyboard on your laptop to your DAW. So you can choose violin, play that MIDI, you're gonna get violin sounds. You choose piano, you'll get piano sounds. You can choose anything like you can choose drums and you're gonna get drum sounds. But then if you really want to get into vocal mixing, you probably don't need a MIDI because it's used to make instruments and tracks. But then if you're thinking eventually you want to make tracks, learn to make songs on your own, instruments on your own, MIDI is the best investment, because otherwise you have to rely on a musical typing feature that is inside Logic or any DAW, where you'll be playing it using the keyboard on your laptop. So the laptop keys will translate into keyboard notes and you'll have to play that. But how much flexibility are you going to have? If you want to play chords and all, it's going to be very difficult. So if that's your goal, I would suggest getting a MIDI. But like I said, all these things that I mentioned are not things that I bought overnight. It was something that I bought very gradually, and to really understand where I started off with, just go through my channel to one of my starting videos and you'll see that I was holding a mic like that. I was sitting on a plastic chair. I did not have speakers, and I had like my MIDI on top of the table, just kept like that, and I was playing and there was no space. Lot of problems, okay? But then when you utilize these things often, you will know when you need to upgrade, when you need a new equipment. That's the point where you kind of invest on it, I would say, because I can buy everything overnight and not use them all. It also depends on how frequently you use it and how important of a need that is, and is it really going to speed up your workflow. For someone who always sings vocals with a karaoke track, maybe MIDI is not going to be the best investment, but buying foams is going to be the best one. Whereas for me, I'm doing a lot of mixing and mastering, and I mostly do it with my headphones. So then for me, foams are not that important probably. So it's based on each person's needs. But this video will give you a very good professional start to recording your vocals, or in fact any recording at a home studio setup. So I hope this gave you a clear idea. Now part 2 of this video is going to be about how you're going to record your vocals or any track for that matter in the right level into your DAW. We are talking about connecting your mic, setting up the equipment. We're going to talk about the levels that you need to achieve, how to monitor your levels inside your DAW while you sing. If you're the only person who's recording yourself and recording inside the DAW, how can you manage that all? How can you record it in the right level, and what's the right level? All these concepts we're going to talk about in the part 2 video of this series. But if you found this useful, don't forget to subscribe and like, comment what you learned in this video. And if you want to add another point or have another video in your mind, don't forget to comment that below as well. I will definitely read your comments. I will make a video on that. That being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm Florina Jain, otherwise known as Flow of Music, and I'll see you guys in part 2.